Hi, I'm Hannah Wallace and welcome to FinextraTV. Kindly calling in today is Tim Dalgleish, Global Advisory Lead at BioCatch. So welcome, Tim. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Hannah. It's great to talk with you.
Good to have you on. Now, today we're speaking off the back of BioCatch's new research paper with Finextra that explores the recent uptick in social engineering attacks globally and also how banks can respond using the latest technology and security measures. So I think it'd be a good place to start to set the scene and to highlight the thinking behind the paper, and also can you tell us a bit about the key objectives. Let's start there.
Yeah, absolutely. So really the nature of fraud is changing quite a bit. So if you think about it, what I would call old school fraud is, you'd click on a phishing email, you'd compromise your login details, bad guy logs in, steals your money. That was, fairly sort of traditional, fairly straightforward. But what we've found, over the last few years, and particularly accelerated with global pandemic, is that it's the criminals have pivoted, right, and they're focusing more on a human. So where it's more scam scenarios. So the controls have improved, around for the old school fraud. So now they're pivoting and focusing back on the human. So to give you an example, I had 3 scam calls today, right? So I had one at 9:05, one at lunchtime, and one just before 5. So the bad guys are running me on an auto dialer and calling me every 3 hours during business hours. So and it's all about targeting the human and getting me to do something that I wouldn't normally do. Today I was in trouble with the customs department, and there was an arrest warrant for me, and if I didn't pay it, I was going straight to jail. So it's and you only need 1 in 100 to make it worthwhile. So it's getting messier, and really the purpose of the paper is to share insights from different markets around what's going on and help create a discussion around how you can manage it, because scams are messy. There's so many different types. So it's not black and white like traditional old school fraud. So really that was the purpose of the paper.
And yeah, exactly. The paper clearly shows that social engineering scams are on the increase as well, doesn't it? And it's the evading the latest security conventions and morphing into a different approach, in short, following the money. So I'd love to hear what feedback you've received from your regional leads on the sort of things customers are most concerned about. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think what we tend to see is that it's quite cyclical. So you will have, it's not necessarily a scam that'll just stay in one market, but maybe it's more prevalent in one market and then migrate to others. So, for example, I was reading about a scam today where a customer is clicking on an SMS and installing some malware on their phone. This was really big early in the year in Europe, and it's just really blown up in Australia, for example, in the last few weeks. So there is a cyclical nature to it. Certainly in Europe and in the UK for the last few years, authorized push payment frauds or scams have been huge in terms of convincing someone to do something they wouldn't normally do. And we've certainly seen a big uptick in that in Asia Pacific as well. And in the US, we also see a lot of scams across many different flavors. To give you one example is what we call tech support scams, so where phone call from your telco or technology company tricking you to install something on a computer and give control of your computer. So we see a lot of that, and that's grown more than 3x in the last 2019 versus 2020, and we've seen a similar trend here. But we do see other differences, like in Latin America, we see more stolen device. And this is where, the scam is someone will physically steal your phone or, create a copy of your phone and commit the fraud that way. So, there are, different flavors in different markets. So, but it gives you a little sample of some of the things that we're seeing.
All right, so that's interesting because we've seen an increase in the UK, but it's not just the UK, it's across the regions, isn't it? So coming back to how the scams have evolved then, what's driving this increase, and how have social engineering scams evolved over the years? What about that?
Yeah, look, there's not one single thing, but there's a combination of things. Certainly the global pandemic has accelerated it. Whether we like it or not, we all do our banking digitally pretty much now. So, so basically everyone's a potential victim from a digital banking scam. So as long as you've got a smartphone or computer, which we all do, you're a potential target. So, if someone picks up the phone on one of those scam calls, you've got a victim on the line. So that's certainly contributed to it. And the other thing is that, as controls have improved around like strong authentication, things around device intelligence, things that we treated, might be treating low risk previously are now higher risk. So, it's really focusing on the human. So to give you an example, if I log in to do my banking from my normal phone, my normal network, traditionally we might treat that as low risk, but things like these, tech support scams, remote access scams, the authorized push payment scams, it breaks that paradigm. So it's really different. There's some of the key factors.
Yeah, those scams sort of stretch between pesky and actually quite frightening, don't they? So why has it been such a challenge then for banks and financial organizations to respond then and also adapt to social engineering? What legacy fraud and security controls do you think are missing at the moment?
Look, I think it comes down to a couple of different factors. So, for example, if you authenticate everything with an SMS one-time passcode and you've got 10 million customers in your bank and all your customers are used to using that control, and so if you can't just go, oh, we'll throw that in the bin and we'll do something different tomorrow, because you've got 10 million customers that are expecting to behave that way. So you don't have the flexibility around that, to shifting to something perhaps more secure. The other thing is that because they're focusing on the human victim, traditional things, like the example I was talking about before, if, traditionally, if you're logging in from your home computer, home network, low risk, but we kind of need to go beyond that now when all these different flavors of scams where it might be, someone being coached through a session to do something versus a criminal, logging in and doing their stealing the money themselves. So, they're a couple of the factors that are contributing to it.
All right, that's really interesting. And then finally, Tim, where does BioCatch fit in? And what do you think the future holds in this space with regards to technology?
Yeah. Well, technology is certainly part of the solution. So BioCatch is what we call behavioral biometrics technology. So really understanding users based on how they interact with their devices. So, for example, I hold my phone in my right hand. I'm a double thumb typer. I've got a certain speed or cadence of how I interact. I've got a certain steadiness of my hand. All these subconscious behaviors. So, BioCatch is profiling these behaviors to know the customer better than the criminal does. So then we can see if someone's being coached to do something that wouldn't normally do, or whether a criminal is controlling their machine or their phone compared to them. So really, by having that, deep behavioural insight, it's something that can't be easily reverse engineered. From a criminal perspective, if you know your customer better than they do, which gives you a competitive advantage, but without creating, loads of friction, additional security that creates a disruptive, banking experience. So really, that's how our technology fits into the.
That's really interesting, and very impressed that you can use double thumbs when texting. But Tim, look, I urge people to go to the paper to learn a bit more about the research, but we'll leave it there for now. So thank you very much for calling in.
Thanks very much, Hannah.